Hi, I wanted to share the kind of therapy we practice at our nonprofit and in my own private practice. Here are actual extracts from online therapy sessions. To preserve client confidentiality and with client consent, I only record my own camera feed and share parts that do not convey identifying information. As a result, you will not see the context, but you will, however, gain an idea for the themes of our therapy, which are connecting to self in awareness and kindness, which leads to genuine power and compassion. Do you want me to share my soapy self, or more business-like, what would feel more supportive? Okay. I'll share my soapy self. Take it if you like it, discard it if you don't. I know that. Good. So the reason why I was saying, would you like me to share my soapy self or not, is, am I using the right word, by the way? Soapy self, what is it? Sappy, thank you. I guess soapy sappy. All right, it's soapy sappy. Just noticing in my system a lot of tenderness towards your system. And partly, because, at the end of the day, all I do is project myself left and right. I've been trying to doing it in awareness, but... And I'll share you why I believe my system sent me the signal of tenderness towards your system. To the best of my, awareness, I suspect that I got the signal because... somehow I imagine myself in situations that I've experienced in the past in which I felt, bad about myself. And so I felt like isolating for, I think, even though it was not held in awareness, for fear of being judged. Because if I think I'm so bad, why wouldn't other people find me so bad as well? And so I think my system sent me a lot of tenderness towards that mechanism, or that imagined mechanism, because I think that's what we do in those instances. Okay, so the notion that you would be imposing on folks as well, and disappoint them, and all of the above, yeah. As an FYI, hence, I believe the tenderness in my system. Myself? Oh, yeah. I'll share what I think has worked for me. I'm going to try to think what I think has worked for me, which is, maybe if I phrase it this way, it will be less circular. In part by developing an appreciation for, I don't like that word, it's so clinical. I was going to say how normal. I'll use that word because I don't have a better word, but having developed in part a warm appreciation for, how normal it is to, feel in those ways and make those decisions. Yeah. Of course, I would want to hide in those instances. And in some ways, sounds like at some level, not at all level, but at some level, it feels like the protective, self-nurturing thing to do. So developing a little bit of empathy towards that mechanism, and also developing some empathy for the context in which we find ourselves. That is such that we don't have a good image of ourselves as well, or empathy for ourselves in the context of for our reactions in light of the context we're in. So I can share what I'm imagining in the context here, but of course in this context we would feel like I was going to say CRAP, but that's a little bit too rough of a word. And so I don't know if you're trying to see what's the use of doing that. I'm happy to share some words on that. I don't know if that's where you're at or not. It feels artificial and risky. Yeah. Yeah. Especially, I don't know if this is how the thinking goes in your system, but this is how the thinking goes in my system at a, not in awareness, but especially given how bad I think I am. Yeah. I'm going to impose on them. I'm going to disappoint them. And not only that, but they're going to judge me and I'm going to feel even worse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Safer at home. Yeah. Safer at home in my shell. You asked me about the point of empathy for this. I'll give you a functional answer. Functional answer is that empathy for this removes an extra layer of judgment we put on ourselves. So that's one less thing that immobilizes us that's one less thing that immobilizes us. At the same time, this is not something I'm making up. That we do want to isolate, that we feel these interactions are risky, that we fear we're going to impose, that we feel that we're going to receive more judgment. Of course, we think those things. It takes time and it takes supportive environment. Is that true what I'm going to say? I'm going to propose... I'm thinking of two major impactants on our wellness. One is... Okay, I'm going to try to become a Freudian temporarily, but I'm not Freudian because I have a much, much more elevated view of humanity than Freud. And a German accent. Yeah. Freud, I think, and I quite resonate. Cigar. That's right. Cigar. Yeah. Freud posited that humanness is about work and love. And so when those two things are impacted, well, yeah, we're going to feel pretty miserable about ourselves. In my experience, patience and time is important because, when we're in an environment in which those two things are not quite present, especially when we self-isolate, then we're depleted. So things are, and I see that in my practice all the time, things move slowly. Yeah. And including, the judgment towards ourselves, especially when it's not warranted, is kind of the opposite of, love as well. So that also immobilizes. Yeah. Can you say more? Thank you for this interesting proposition. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. No, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. That expression is pathetic, right? Isn't it? Yeah, exactly. So what I'm proposing is that it does. Say that again. That too, absolutely. Well, it depends. It depends, what value judgment we have to, the word pathetic. Sounds like it's a pretty harsh judgment, but that's okay. That's okay. It is what it is. Well, it's I don't know if it's too simplistic. It's the question of, is it okay when someone hurts in a hurtful situation or not? Oh, that's an interesting question. I suspect it is, actually. because it's a signal that something's not going well, given how we're structured. So I can't make a valid judgment on how we're structured. Yeah. What do you think? Oh, it's and pleasant as heck. I think that's the idea. Poignant when there is forces and environments that lead to immobility. But I think the intent is life-giving. That is a cultural construct. Don't feel sorry for yourself. This is pathetic. Yeah. But at a minimum, it translates profound ignorance on how we're wired. Because usually it's deployed, don't bother me, towards our kiddos, don't bother me with your emotions, I can't deal with that. And if I were to design sentient creatures, I would wire them so that they have sentient messages for when things are not right. And I'm not a creationist, I'm completely agnostic, by the way. I would propose both, if that's okay with you. And empathy may be too strong of a word at this stage. Can I run the chain the chain to you again? Yeah. So one of the proposition is that we're designed to thrive when. Sorry, I'm going to use shortcut words that have so many meanings, but when we can work appropriately and feel loved. These in some ways have an strong environmental component to them. So when the environment is depriving us of those things, which seems to be in some ways some of the case here, we do feel, how about immobilized? That's one of the potential reactions. Historically, and on top of that, when we... Oh, I have your soapy sappy therapist has a bout of tenderness towards what you shared about you and your mom. Then we are predisposed to have negative judgments towards ourselves. Am I going too fast? Okay. In an environment in which there is love is deficient and work is deficient, judgment gets triggered, usually quite through the roof. So that's another force towards immobilization. So we have two forces towards immobilization. The environment that deprives us of correct amounts of love and work, and the negative self-judgment that's triggered. And all I'm sharing is my having observed with me and with folks I'm working with, that when we get a little bit of understanding, or if we're both a little bit of tenderness towards what's happening, then at least the part of the judgment towards ourselves loses some of its strength. Negative judgment, and negative judgment for me is the opposite of love. So we have a little bit of lighter load to carry. And so then the chance of being able little by little to do something about these things is increased, or at least if not towards self, but towards your organism's reaction, or recognizing that there is a systemic component to what's happening here. Systemic in terms of our own human system and the environment you're in and have been in, and it doesn't mean, by the way, it's not destiny. But it's what's happening now, what's been happening now. Yeah, maybe I'm using the words incorrectly. Well, I guess there are some loops. First of all, there's a human system that we seem to all have, with which we all do seem to share some common characteristics. So, the thing about shame and thriving and, work and love and all these things. And then, systemic in terms, and maybe I'm using the wrong word, in terms of, the environment that we're in which there is not much love, there's not much work. Yeah. And the interplay of all these things together. which results in some behaviors in us and some experience of phenomena in us as well, including thoughts and emotions. You're welcome. See you next week.